Mahata, can you elaborate us, now since you are a representative from Bangladesh, you are the Vice President of ICMAB, can you tell me the view of Bangladesh, especially of ICMAB on the cost accounting standards and how cost accounting standards are applied in Bangladesh?
Okay, let me start with, since we're talking about cost and effect, I think let me start with one of the nice story to understand what we are trying to talk about. I don't know how many of you know Nasruddin Hoja, a guy, a figure from, Central Asia. Once what happened to him, he was going through financial crisis. When he was going through, and he has got a very favorite donkey. And whenever he was having financial crisis, what he did first to reduce the rationing of food to the donkey. And what happened? Donkey still continued to do the work. Second month, looking at his strength, he decided to reduce it further. Then it became weak, but still somehow managed to finish his work. Third month, he reduced it further. What happened? He can't work anymore. He's somehow sustaining. He's still alive. And fourth month, getting encouraged by donkey's performance, he reduced it further, and eventually the donkey dies. What's the learning from this story? Height of cost cutting or cost optimizations. Every decision on cost you take, it has its impact on, it has got a consequences. If you take wrong decisions, the consequences will be negative. If you take the positive decisions, right decisions, consequences will be positive, right? So I think in each and every decision, you should ask yourself of that. I'm not getting too much of the standard. Actually, I've gone through the last presentations, enough of standard we have been talking about. Of course, the two standards are very, very critical in the coming days where cost accountants play a role. One is sustainability and the other one is CSR. So besides that, another point that I want to emphasize on that cost accounting community and accountants community should focus on, that is in the crisis that as a nation we are going through. I think in this region, the kind of crisis recently Sri Lanka had gone through, it is not something new. I have seen in Pakistan in 1999 going through similar kind of crisis where they, as a country, they become bankrupt. So how, as an accountant, can play a role to face that kind of crisis? I have not seen much of a exercise or much of. I'm sure you are doing a lot of stuff, but what are the things we can do? Just 1 minute, if I can explain. Like one of the things I did when you have forex crisis in a country, Bangladesh is facing this problem today. Sri Lanka is also having that problem, right? How do you face it? Like one of the exercises that I carried out in Pakistan, and I was responsible for world's ice cream. First thing we did is how can we reduce the foreign component? I'm sure you know it very well. How can we reduce the foreign component to continue producing the product? Second thing was what I did. $1 because dollar is so precious at that point of time. $1 of utilization in that particular product generates what percentage of profitability? Do you understand? Because you cannot produce all the product because there is no sufficient dollar in hand. So that's where you can utilize the costing knowledge and understanding of the relationship in each and every decision making. I think that's how we can be more relevant to the specific situations and context. To me, cost accountants and accountants are contextual. It's different situations. We apply different knowledge and innovative knowledge. That's it from my side for now.
Thank you, Madam. I will ask specific questions about telecommunication and FMCG sectors of Bangladesh later. Rajita, I would like to know your general views about this topic.
Okay, thank you, Ruchira. Especially when it comes to the hospitality sector, I think we all aware we face significant challenges during the past few years with the April East attack and the pandemic situation and the economic crisis. So then with these challenges, actually cost accounting and the cost controlling techniques became more important in order to maintain the profitability levels of the hotel industry. So then if we take as an example now Colombo 5-star hotel which generate basically they generate more on F&B nowadays, 50 to 60% F&B revenues. So out of that, if the hotel want to maintain somewhere around 35 to 38% food cost, so they will be, 1 point of food cost will be 3 to 4 million per month. So that means if we can save 1% of food cost, so we can save a lot of money. So how do we apply those theories into practice? So basically, if I give you 5 key factors that you need to have a better procurement process. So that means when we need to have periodic contracts with the suppliers and better negotiation, better terms, exclusivity of products. And when we are taking procurement, we need to have some blind taste process, something that we can implement, because now when it comes to hospitality, sometimes some of the chefs, maybe they will be going for a brand. But now actually I have one example that we recently did the blind taste with the imported products and local products, and when we go to the blind taste, the tasting panels, they don't know this is from which brand, which supplier, etc. So finally there were a lot of foreign panelists were there for the tasting, but finally one of our local product was selected. So then there will be a huge saving because we didn't have taxes and all those things. So likewise, we didn't have better procurement practices. In addition to that, we need to have now if we get the right product at right price, we need to have a right product costing. So when it comes to the right product costing, also we need to consider the specification, yield factor, all those things. So then once we do the costing, so we need to evaluate whether we are doing the right profitability level. So that means we need to implement certain menu engineering techniques. That is something new to the hotel industry, especially in Sri Lanka. So when we going through the menu engineering, we can go through item-wise profitability levels, and based on those analytical decisions, we can take the certain decision. That means sometime maybe we need to revise the selling price, sometime we need to revisit the portion size, the preparation, or sometime maybe we need to reconsider the whole menu itself. So once we do that one, then the other contribution coming from the buffet costing. So we need to have some buffet costing standards. So then we need to identify whether there are any wastage, and we need to eliminate whatever the wastage. So after all those things, end of the month, still we need to ascertain the actual cost versus our theoretical cost. So that is, I think, some of the organizations which is not practicing even in Sri Lanka. That means now most of the hotels that they have an annual plan, and end of the month they will be evaluating the annual plan versus actual. So if they have achieved the actual figures in line with the annual plan, they are satisfied. But if we go beyond that, so we need to understand what would be our theoretical cost. For example, now if our actual cost is higher than the theoretical cost, so that means there is something wrong. So that means either there can be a revenue leakage, or maybe your product costing is incorrect. So if we apply all those things, definitely we can achieve significant savings through this cost accounting techniques. But even though we applied those things, so when it comes to hotel cost control techniques, so daily basis we need to evaluate our food cost management systems. So then based on that, we can take certain decisions. So thank you.
Thank you, Rajita, for the opening remarks. Mr. Athukorala, now as a representative of UN audit committees, can you tell us now, since morning we have been listening to our Indian speakers, they were talking about cost accounting audits, maintaining cost records and auditing cost accounting records. So as a representative of the UN audit committees, how you think as these cost accounting records and cost audits will be important?
Okay, thank you. Now, in my view, so we have 4 different areas when it comes to accounting. Well, finance accounting, auditing, then tax, and cost and management accounting, the last. Right? In Sri Lanka, my view is that the least developed field is cost and management accounting. Some may not like it, but so when it comes to the other 3, we are reasonably ahead and can even compare with the developed countries. But cost sort of and the management accounting wise, we are way behind. Then, when it comes to private sector organizations, they have a way of taking care of their own cost, and they got to be competitive. But what happens to the public sector? Public sector is not the sort of cost-efficient operator, I would say. Now, you take a utility, I don't know how many of you have lived outside Sri Lanka. So say that you have a power breakdown. So you call somebody, the utility company, power company, and then one guy comes, drive his own vehicle, comes and clean up and everything, and he goes. Now you call, say, LECO or CEB in Sri Lanka. A vehicle comes with 10 people and one person to drive the vehicle, one person to hold the ladder and put it back, and then one person to carry the equipments, one person to climb up the post, and so you will see about 10 people. So all this time, we didn't care about that efficiency factors. Why? The real rates were not transferred back to the consumer. Now what happens? So in the recent past, we have seen the rates are being increased at a rate, right? So what happens? The efficiency factors matter. In the past, what happened? Say 10 people needed for a particular job, then 10 people were there. Then a new minister comes, he say, okay, doesn't matter, I add one more person, so it's public. So he had one. The next minister comes after a few months, we have so many changes, and he will also put, already one person in excess, I can add two more. So likewise, after about 3-4 years, you will see 10 people needed for the job, and you will see 20 people in that area, right? Not doing anything. So now, all of a sudden, government decided to pass the cost back to the consumer. We are going to pay for that 20 people, extra 10 people. So this is where we need to be careful, and there's need for us to insist the cost factors together with the efficiency factors. If you take cost in isolation, I would say we are not going anywhere. You need to take the cost factors with the efficiency factors, and then so we can improve the productivity and then the service to the country and the consumer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. CMA Rajendra. Now, stemming from that, previously your colleagues have mentioned about the same things, the necessity of maintaining cost accounting records and the necessity of doing cost accounting audits. Now, can you tell me your general view about this particular topic, how it can help industries to improve their performances, efficiencies, and improve their performances?
Thank you, Ruchit Pereira. So, as my previous colleague have mentioned that cost accounting standard and cost accounting principle we have, and we control our costing in India is like, financial figure and financial balance sheet gives the overall profitability of an organization. When you go and see the balance sheet and result, then you only see the financial performance of an organization. When the costing, we look for the profitability of every product. If your product is profitable, then your organization will be profitable. So our more focus on making all these, just you have seen from the presentation that we have an element-wise cost accounting standard, where you might have seen that Assis have mentioned that one of the cost accounting standard 2, where we have a determination of things. As sir was saying that if you have a ABC costing, then wherever you have a overcharge and an undercharge. So according to our cost determination, if the organization is not following according to the determination level. So we are not charging to that we have seen show you in the reconciliation statement. So wherever the overburden is charged, that goes to the reconciliation. And then the government, whatever the get in the cost reconciliation statement, they call us. They issue the notice to the, because our reporting is to the government. Our cost audit report goes to the government. Stakeholder is the government. Or in the financial year audit report is for the shareholder, not for them. So whatever comes in the reconciliation, if any item you have overcharged in some sort of, I'll give you one of example which has been affected to Asian country as a whole. So you might have seen our transportation cost, we were least bothered in some sort. One of the example you might have seen in the recent past when one of the ship got stuck in the Suez Canal. And then later on the cartel of the logistic people, they have made it. And the way they have charged. And recently you have seen in the G20, we came with the ICMAI, which is the Indian, Middle East and European corridor. So we are thinking of that. So this, the way things are, in the people want to take a benefit of some sort of things. So these kind of standard, recently we we are planning to have one standard in the transportation costing also. Because now the logistic has become one of the good issue to cross border, because then all the countries have opened up the businesses. And even in one of our prime minister who told in 20 years back, means 15 years back, if you don't reach by a road to the village, so making a policy sitting in the parliament is not going to work. So until and unless you reach by road to the villages, then only you. So now we have a good roads and all infrastructure in country. So our country is flourishing like anything. So from that perspective, we all thought then we are coming with the transportation cost, then cost accounting standard also, that will help us to industry also, and they will give some sort of what effect can one costing item can affect to the enterprises also. So if you could have been thought, then we can instantly give some sort of a representation to countries and all that because that change was hundreds times. If your price was $150 and it goes to the 1500, so your element of a cost we think for the labor, material and the three element of. If your transportation is used seeing in this, so sort of a standard was there and we could have represented. So it could save the industry also. So that's the practical. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendra. Mr. Asim, as the Senior Vice President of Lanka IOC, I am sure you have a lot to share on this particular topic. How cost accounting records have helped IOC to do well at a crisis time?
Yeah, thank you, Ruchira. Ruchira, I would like to answer this question by highlighting a situation that we faced last year, specifically during the crisis time, economic crisis time. So during that time, the business environment was such that on one side, because of this Russia-Ukraine war, the oil prices were galloping like anything, because they increased by about 25 to 30% in about a month's time. And at the same time, Sri Lanka was going through devaluation of the currency, because of which sharp decline happened within a very short period of time. So if we talk of actually pricing our product at that time, one of the important factors was what should be the correct price. Because on one side, we are not having enough of forex with us, and the country had very low forex reserves. On the other side, the fuel crisis started, and if we talk of procurement, we need to price the product in such a way that we are able to recover the cost, and that cost is not known to us because devaluation is happening, prices are rising, and we cannot change the prices of fuel on a very frequent basis. So there had to be an estimate based on some assumptions on the costing there has to be some assumptions on which we price the product so that we collect enough sum to go for the fresh cargoes. So at that time, we had to factor in all the volatility in the market, all the possible scenarios, and I would say yes, we did keep it at a very reasonable price based on whatever the assumptions were coming, whatever the information was traveling from the market to us, the international market. And yes, this proper keeping of, I would not say exactly the cost records, but keeping a track of the market along with the costing, along with the right pricing, that enabled us to provide the country with the required fuel seamlessly. Because had there been any error in estimation, in collection of enough funds available for the next cargo, we would have faced dry out. And that is the situation we never wanted. And we could successfully go through because of that. That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Asim. Ajit, the final question in the first round for you. Now, you are representing the plantation sector, which is very well established in our country, and you maintain basically very good financial records as well as cost accounting records. Tell us your general view about this topic, how cost accounting records help your company and also the industry in general to achieve above average performances or to do well at a difficult time.
Yeah, thank you, Regina. Actually, plantation, we are using cost accounting over the years from colonial time. Even today, in plantation level, we are using cost accounting, especially activity-based costing. At corporate level, we are preparing financial accounting for reporting purpose. So the cost accounting, the mainly plantations, we identify each and every activity and allocate man days for those activity, because about 60 to 70% of cost involving labor-related payments, expenditure. So the plantation cost can be managed through the management of labor days. Based on that, the budgets are prepared annually and monthly. Those are reviewed, and the man days are allocated according to the efficiency, the cost management strategies. Then the other materials also allocated to those activities, and those activities are monitored frequently. Actually, why this cost accounting is so important in plantation? So plantation are widely spread all over the country. So the activities are happening everywhere. Even in one location, plantation, you can see some people are harvesting, some applying fertilizer. So many activities are happening concurrently. So all those activities should be monitored, and those should be managed. Then the main tool for this activity, for monitoring and controlling, is the costing, monitoring and reporting. And the same time, the agriculture, in the plantation in Sri Lanka especially, they are selling the produce very, very competitive market. So they don't have any control over their price, the selling price. So to make the margin, to record the profit, we need to maintain proper costing system to maintain the cost and the margin. So that's why the plantation use the cost accounting, reporting and monitoring efficiently from the colonial time.
Thank you, Ajit. Mahatab, now this question is for you. Now, how do you think, or how do you view the role of cost accountants in the digital era, especially when you take telecommunication industry, how it is changing and how you think it should change in the future?
Thanks. I think we need to change ourselves. The first point for all of us, if we don't understand technology and if we don't understand how it is going to change our life, our operation, then we'll be falling behind and we'll get into big trouble. Even while entering this room, I was asked one question like, technology cannot be used in services that much. It is more applicable for manufacturing industry or cost accounting. So let me tell you, telecom is definitely a service industry. Now, I'll give you one or two examples so that you understand and you can apply in your operations as well. If I don't know, and there are integral cost component. One is spectrum, network maintenance, and there is also call center services, if I consider telecom as a operations. Now, if I want to reduce call center cost, how can we reduce call center cost? You need to know AI. If you don't know AI and if you don't know big data play, you cannot reduce that cost. Because today there is a technology available, you can set a robot, you can put virtual talking machine to do the job of call center. So if you are an employee of telecom industry or any banking industry where call center occupies a big chunk of the cost, you need to understand this technology. Without understanding the technology, you cannot act on reducing that cost. So there's a disruption is possible. And let me give you a bit of, again, another story. If you make a wrong understanding of your technology or innovations and try to apply that in your job, you may get into big trouble. Like this family story. The family story is like that. A guy, a father, figure like me, who bought a new robot. The robot and it has got a feature of lie detector. You understand? So he wants to ensure in this house, everyone talks the truth. So one day, the elder son, he came home, and father asked, "Why are you so late?" The guy responded, "Dad, I was having group studies with my friends." The robot standing there immediately slapped on his face. So then father asked, "Tell me the truth. Where did you go?" So he said that actually I went out with my girlfriend. We had a date. So that's fine. Then father responded saying, during our time, at your age, we didn't know even the meaning of GF. So then immediately the robot slapped on the father's face as well. And the mother was standing just beside him, and she said, "Like father, like son." And the robot slapped on her face too. So the story, I'm sharing that because, if you don't know the consequences of using that innovation of technology, you'll get into trouble. So as a cost accountant and accountant, we need to understand the technology very, very well. So that will be my first point of learning. And I often see we are reluctant to use and understand the technology. We talk too much about blockchain, we talk too much about AI, but we don't try to understand the real meaning of blockchain and AI and use of it in our day-to-day job. So that's the first part of warning to everyone sitting in this room. Let's try to understand. And another relevant issue, I can talk on this for an hour or so. But another issue that I want to emphasize on for our community, which is blockchain. Blockchain, if you understand the meaning of it and function of it, you can use it for preventive compliances. Compliances or cost control or any kind of control are two types. One is preventive, another is detective. AI and blockchain can help us to move into more preventive. And for that, if you can understand it and apply it accurately, then I can tell you, not only your organization operations will be more secure, but also you can ensure it is done with the least resources at your end. So, if I talk about telecom, the biggest issue of telecom is technological changes. When in Bangladesh we launched 3G, we were depreciating on what basis? The network equipment we buy, for 10 years it will run. But in reality, 3G technological age was not more than 5-6 years. We had to write off the whole component. You should be able to see the technology, what's the age of that technology. The traditional, typical way of calculating the economic life is not going to help. 4G, yes, 4G is going on for is going strong. But now people started investing in 5G. Are there any use cases of 5G when people don't have 4G devices? So if 5G we implement, what will be the economic life of 5G? Do you understand? And people are talking about 6G. So I think telecom is a big playground for accountants to add value to these operations in so many ways. And another thing I must say that fixed cost, whenever there is a capital intensive operations like telecom or ice cream business, we need to have very, very good understanding of costing and future of it. Otherwise, that organization will be in big trouble. In summary, what I would say is, we are getting into more and more crises. COVID, then Ukraine, then Gaza war, and our own economic crisis. These crises will be coming more frequently than ever before. So if you have static mind as an accountant community, we are bound to fail. So we have to be very agile. We have to be, reacting to the changes very, very fast. And if we do that, we remain as successful as ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahatab. I fully agree with you. Now, telecommunication is one sector which should be regulated and where cost accountants can play a big role. And talking about regulators, I would like to ask this question from Mr. Atukorla. Do you think, Mr. Atukorla, that our utility prices, especially we have seen sharp increases in recent times, do you think that they were costed properly? Do you want to add anything to what government has done?
Certainly not. And in fact, I have answered partly when I did my opening remarks also. So the utility all these prices, we need to take up the fact that efficiency is a more important part in there. So the actual cost may be something, but the cost that should be paying by the consumer may be something different, right? So therefore, you need to look at the certain developed countries and what their cost factors, when it is not the rate, dollar rate or euro rate I'm talking about, how many hours X person need to be spending on one particular job. And then, so if you take that number of hours and then multiply by rupee term, so you will get the real cost. So in the utility, yes. So I don't know how many of you know when power transmission lines are there. So the power transmission from point A to point B, always there is a loss of power, right? And sometime back, about 15, 20 years back in Sri Lanka, that loss of power from A to B transmission was huge, right? And recently I heard that they have corrected it. So if there is a 5% extra loss in transmission than the standard, so what are you going to do? You are going to happily pay that amount? No, you are not going to pay that amount. You want it to be efficient, the rate that you will be paying. Okay? So given this sort of situation, I would say rather than the private sector, public sector costing need to be very, very accurate and together with the efficiency factors. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Atukorla. Mr. Asankaratapaksha, this question is for you. Now, as you move forward, now earlier in your opening remarks, you have mentioned what you all have done during the crisis time as basically how the company has moved forward. So basically, going forward, since the country is now a little bit in a stable situation, as you go forward, what other strategies that you will take in order to improve the profitability of your company, and what role cost accountants can play in this regard?
Yeah, Richard, actually, this is a very, integrated topic that we started that the additional efforts to see the cost through the crisis. Actually, that attempt, exercise that we still continue because it gives more benefit for us. That I will give you some certain examples, right? So in the crisis situation, we had some sort of very low order situation. So in that ground, that we see that our employees are, excess for us, some workers. So we came out a nice concept that most of our cost centers, we try to create as a revenue centers. A general example is that the engineering workshop, they used to cater, breakdowns internally happens. That the engineers and technicians supposed to support for internal staff only. That we converted them to see that the outside opportunities and a new product development with their technical knowledge. That creates a certain cost thinking, how that the cost that they themselves create as a revenue generation process. That's one example. Again, Ruchira, that we had a very, standard number of employees for in finance department to see the cost in the factory. That's a tradition. So in the crisis, that we need to, monitor our cost and a kind of exercises to optimize resources and all. So we identified that the people are not sufficient and there are lack of our resources. So we created a concept that creating a cost controllers through the production process. That the most skillful operators we created as cost controllers, because they are the one who see the consumption, see the technology. That came up a nice concept that they created so much of exercises and cost reduction initiatives to add value to the entire production process. That we created a 7 to 8 team members that created from the production flow, the operators become a cost controllers right now, that they're working on the journey. Another classic example is that, so most of the time that the reduction period, like the order reduce and then capacity enhancement project, that we see that redundancies. So we created our talent pool to see the more opportunities through the training and development. We gave a massive training development, including myself, that participated for lean thinking and lean journey, that where that our thinking created to see the waste. So we, as a cost accountant and accountants, we never know about that the terminology like 7 waste, 16 losses in the operation, availability losses, performances losses, that we saw motion, that we never know about the motion and material waiting time and all sort of waste. So that thinking created us to see many non-value added activities through the production process. Myself and my management team, we went through a weekly Gemba walk, we call the rapid plant assessment, to see the waste, that amazing, viewpoint that we get, why that overproduction, why that the reworks, why that the kind of waitings happen in the production flow created us a thinking that how that improve the cost. All these exercises, Ruchira, created us for a new opportunity. Sometimes, I will give the last another example. We had a period that we didn't have much more orders. We urged to have a new order. So at that point, our sales team evaluated where we lost our orders previously, when we are good. So we identified 95% of our orders lost because of our cost. So we try to experiment how that we get the target cost and reevaluated our opportunities. Then we understand that the unit of measurement that we see the cost has to be changed. So we see the product cost as a unit of measurement pieces. What is the cost for pieces? What is the cost of the rim? So rather than we converted the unit of measurement, what is the weight of that product and what should be the standard cost of that product, we identified that multiple variation on that product, and because of that we see the cost in a different manner. So we came to the target costing mechanisms to enter into the new market. Especially we entered into the Indian market as being a Sri Lankan, right? Very, very few companies export to the India. Because of India is very cost conscious. So India gave us a nice example that sometimes I met with my customers and see that this is our product. They say, no, if this is a cost that you can sell. So we came back to the country and sit with the team, see how come that India sell that product at that cost. So because of their thinking of the cost is much more advanced in certain unit of measurement than we see the cost in our process. The classic example is we see the steel, we never go into the chemical composition. and material BOM level cost in each product and material. Those are the micro level MRI scanning to be done in our production process than the so-called that X-rays to be done in the cost. Ruchira. This is the idea for us, I mean, to compete, and then it's a long journey. It's never-ending journey to how to improve the cost in an organization. It's like a long-term journey, and then that journey to be see as an opportunities rather than cost cutting in an organization. That will have a win-win situation.
Thank you, Asanka. Thank you for those practical insights. And stemming on that, I would like to ask from Rajita. Now, cost controller concept is also applied in hotels. Now, how do you think their role and how do you think cost controlling techniques will help to improve the margins?
Yeah, exactly. I think especially as I mentioned in my previous remarks, so cost controlling techniques play a critical role in order to increase the margins in the hotel industry. So if we talk about the first step is it should come from the right product costing. So when it comes to hotel industry, basically we have a la carte and buffet mainly. So when it comes to a la carte costing, so we need to have a correct BOM in place. So when we get that BOM also, if I get a simple example, now if we get a fish from the market, maybe with the rate of 1,500 per kg, so from there is an edible weight. So we need to identify the edible weight of that fish. So that is the rate that we can apply into the BOM. So that means we need to consider the yield rate or the edible weight per kg versus as purchase rate. So if we apply the as purchase rate, so that is incorrect. So that is where our cost controlling techniques will come into play. So in addition to that, even when we are buying the product, so we need to select the best product now with the different specification, because sometimes if we need to get some samples and we need to understand what is the best yield from which size of that product. So likewise, so when it comes to sometimes vegetables, so maybe if we take the pineapple is one of the best examples nowadays in Sri Lanka, which is a bit expensive. So if we give one number as a purchase specification, so sometimes your suppliers will not have an understanding. So they will bring maybe 500 gram pineapple, 600 gram pineapple, likewise. So ideally, now there are certain items like mangoes, pineapple, apples, so those type of things. So we need to have correct specifications to be given to the supplier. So then supplier and the hotel will be in the same mind and the correct quality of the item. So ideally for those type of things, so we need to buy in kilos and we need to give, now for example, if it is mango, so then how many numbers per kg. So likewise, so we need to capture the right product costing when it comes to a la carte menus. So in addition to that, based on our food cost percentage, so we need to keep the right margin. And not only that, so maybe we need to see the consumer demand and what sort of consumer demand and what are the prices maintaining at your concept. So all those things to be evaluated, and we need to fix our menus. So we need to have a balance. So when it comes to the buffets, most of the time what we need to understand is we need to understand what is the break-even covers for the buffet, because some of the hotels we have seen that they are maintaining buffets but they don't have the break-even cover. So then ultimately they are making losses. So we need to first identify, and then we need to take some strategic decisions. So how do we maintain our buffet? Are we going to have a full spread, or are we going to have a different catering system? So likewise, we need to have a understanding. So in addition to all those things, right product costing, and after that we need to, as I previously mentioned, so end of the month we need to ascertain our potential cost or the theoretical cost. So how do we do that is, so based on the BOMs, we need to get the costing done. So that cost we need to evaluate against the actual production. So then if there is a difference, so then we need to go back to in details and we need to find out. So that is where I think cost control techniques can play a huge role. So in addition to that, when it comes to cost controlling techniques, so there are basic things like procurement, which I explained previously as well. So after we procure the items to the hotel, when you are receiving department, so there should be a good controls should be there in your receiving department. Because with the recent example in one of our Sri Lankan hotels, nearby there is a hotel, actually there is a small shop nearby that hotel. So in that shop, the chicken is selling below the market rate. So then when we go into more details, so then find out actually there is a fraud happening at the receiving. So if we have proper cost accounting methods implemented at your organization, so it should have been detected at the right time at the hotel level rather than coming from the outside. So then finally, all those things will impact on the costing. So then when it comes to the receiving, we need to have proper storing and issuing methods with the proper temperature maintenance, and in addition to that, proper issuing techniques with the approvals and all those things. So after issuing, it goes to the production, and even the production, we need to have a proper portioning out. Now, for example, recently with the festive days, I think some of the most of our hotels, so they have a lot of imported items used for the Christmas and 31st buffets. So some of the meat items which cost 40 to 50,000 rupees per kg. So now, for example, if we are giving 200 grams from that particular item, if the portioning is not done correctly, so then there will be a extra cost involved. So likewise, we need to do a portioning control. And in addition to that, after, we need to have a proper control in your selling point at the restaurant. So we need to make sure that what we serve and we have got the right billing for that item. So likewise, we need to have a cycle of cost controlling. So those type of things should be implemented at any hotel, and definitely there will be significant cost savings can be done through these techniques.
Thank you, Rajita. CMA Rajendra, this question is for you, but I would like to link this question to what your countryman has mentioned, Asim has mentioned. Now, he has mentioned during the difficult time, of course, they have gone through a foreign exchange crisis, and of course, they may have factored the foreign exchange loss if they have encountered in their product costing. Now, in a previous presentation, I can't remember whether it was by Neeraj or by Dr. Ashish, one of them have mentioned that such abnormalities should not be considered when it comes to product costing. Do you differ, in your view, to what Asim has mentioned?
No, see, what Neeraj has mentioned, that when we report to our government in normal circumstances, no? So internally, when they went to India and then he came to know got the idea from that, no? So that was the specific one. There he thought that we could have buy, but again it was the financial decision, not operational. Because the costing is we talk of the operational things, what we are doing. Managing a finance is the financial. Then what finance people are doing? They are giving the balance sheet and they're saying that where my P is, that my basic share price is this, some sort of things. So what, otherwise, if he could have managed with the foreign exchange and some sort of things, and then finance could have celebrated that things. That is why. So there should not be any conflict on that. So finance people will, when you will have a huge profit, when you have a loss, then they will tell this is due to this foreign exchange loss, it is the cost you. But when reverse case, when you will have a gain, they will tell that our finance people are very expert. They are very expert in hedging. They are very expert in doing the forward contract and all that. So that won't work. So in reporting to government that Neeraj and Ashish has mentioned was when government takes why in India what we have a system to report the government, whatever you have produced, how you have produced, we don't bother. Internally, how you are not doing, we are not bother, because they took our costing on the whatever you have produced. Because report goes on the production unit. If you go and see the raw material cost per unit, it is divided by the how much you have produced. But in the internally, it goes with the whatever input you have put in some sort of a things. So it's a little bit of a difference as regard the control, because the owner and the promoter wants how you have produced. I want only that much of a costing. You might have introduced 1,000 quantity and produced 700. He wants costing on the basis of a 700. But in internally, my production department, my purchase department, they all want to work on the 1,000 unit, because we control on them on that basis. So the same like the foreign exchange gain, he might be, sometimes it looks, as I mentioned in the transportation cost, when the cost up, it goes huge, then we thought that this can be the most good element for the cost, because when it hurt us. But again, the foreign exchange, the production manager can't think of that doing. He can only give this, I want this much of a requirement for my unit. So the finance people, those who are sitting, those who are knowing the international scenario and all that, they have to think now. That is why we are not putting in this. Then we put in the reconciliation.
Interesting. Neeraj, now I would like to ask the same question from you. At the operational level, now Asim has mentioned that of course they had the difficult time during the foreign exchange crisis in Sri Lanka. So at the operational level, if there was a regulator, if it is regulated, should that cost be considered?
See, basically for the regulator purpose, I would still suggest that the cost of foreign exchange shall not form part of costing. But costing is kind of subjective. Subjective in the sense the usage of costing, for what purpose you are using the costing, would determine what costs you will consider. Based on that, the costing decision will happen. So the principles that we have formulated in India are considering that our economy is in a particular stage, it's growing, there are no economic crisis. So the decision, as Rajendra explained regarding the foreign exchange, is under that situation. When you have a completely different situation, then maybe the government also can think from a different perspective. Because if, like I mentioned in my example, no notional cost shall be considered or no replacement cost shall be considered. But that is from a perspective of having the actual costing view. You go to the management costing or for the management decision making purpose, then these all costs get involved in the costing as well. So you really have to look at what is the situation on ground, and from that perspective then the governments have to decide. So maybe for the countries who are having trouble, then the costing has to be modulated to that extent till the time there is a economic stability and the stability in the exchange rate also. If the exchange rate keeps on fluctuating too much, then maybe what I would suggest that when you are designing a cost sheet, you add, in our cost sheet also there is something called as industry specific expenses. So maybe the cost sheet needs to be modified to add these kind of costs below your total costs. So we have cost of production, then cost of sale. So maybe for countries like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, when currently there is a economic crisis, you can add one more line which says that implication of foreign exchange gain or loss or implication of hedging, and then you consider the total cost so that it gets reported correctly. So the user of the statement can have a choice either to look at cost without these elements or also a cost with complete, and then the government can take a decision.
Thank you, Neeraj. So on the same statement, on the same cost sheet, I would like to ask this question from Ajit. Ajit, I know in the plantation sector we have cost sheets, but do you think, now going by what they have presented since morning, do you think any amendments are needed in the cost sheets which are currently being used in the sector?
Yes, Regina. Now, the cost sheet, actually now we are having only the cost we are expending now. Now we are committing. But the thing is, that cost will be changed depend on the situation. Example, now we are expecting climate change, global warming. So we have to, as plantation, we have to allocate some resources, some expenditure to fight against, to mitigate those negative aspects of climate change. So that component we have to include to our cost sheet. So now we have already started the remedial action for climate change. We are now planting native plants, native species in our plantation, reforestation, extending our forest areas to secure our water base, water resources. So that cost now come into our cost sheet. So that is actually ongoing thing. We can't stick to the list of what we are having now. We have to modify according to the requirement.
Thanks, Ajit. If audience has any questions, you can ask me. Maybe we can take one or two questions since we have run out of time. There is
Our subject of the seminar is cost effect on industry and services, which drives business performance. But in case where, in fact, that is a very good thing, because if you reduce cost, you make your profit. But the whole appendage says that when there's competition, also there you can, the consumer benefits at a low price, right? But thinking on the company side, when the regulator fixes the selling price, right? For example, if you take the fuel distribution, now only IOC and CPC, they are selling at the regulator price. Then there is they're not allowed to reduce their price, right? So the economy is not benefited, right? Then if you get that Chinese company only has reduced by 10%, if I remember right. So in such a situation, I mean, there is no economic benefit when the regulator intervenes in the selling price. For example, even Peter Drucker said, the first performance of a company is economic performance. And later, if the economy improves, that company survives.
Mr. Isley, can you please shorten and ask the question?
Yeah, so what I want to show is, in the case of where the regulator fixes the price, you can't increase the price, right? So the only other alternative is go on reducing the cost side. But in order to achieve higher profit, so there is a limit for reducing cost also, right? So what I want to wish to say is, you see, regulator interfering in the selling price, right? He cannot reduce the selling price also, right? He has to sell at the same price. So there are no incentive to reduce cost. That is what I want to mention.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have run past time. So we are supposed to finish by 1:30. Of course, we had a 1 hour of fruitful discussion. So thank you very much for your participation. I must thank all the panelists also. Thank you very much for your participation. So with this, I would like to wind up the session. And after this, of course, you all are invited for the lunch, which is served outside, I suppose. So thank you very much once again for your participation, and also for my panelists for a wonderful discussion. With this, I'll wind up the session.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ruchira. So with that, we conclude the panel discussion. The theme was the cost accounting to drive business performance. So now I invite Professor Lakshmana Vatavada to hand over the token of appreciation for our moderators and our panelists. So to hand over the token of appreciation, now I invite Mr. Ruchira Pereira, the council member and our moderator. And Mr. Asanka Rajapaksa, the Managing Director, OTR Wheels Engineering, Lanka. And Mr. Ajit Nisanka, the General Manager of Finance, Horona Plantations PLC. And Mr. Asim Bhargava, the Senior Vice President, Finance, Lanka IOC. And Mr. Rajitha Fernando, the Director, Revenue and Cost Control, Cinnamon Hotels and Resorts. And CMA Rajendra Singh Bhati, the Council Member, Institute of Cost Accountants of India. and Mr. Mantab Uddin Ahmed, the Vice President ICMAB and Founder and Managing Director Billcon Consultants Limited, and Mr. Lakshman Athakorala, a Sri Lankan to serve the UN audit committees.
We have some publication exchange from India, so some books we want to exchange with the CMA Council. CMA Council. Yeah. You want to exchange some exchange?
So now the ICMA India now, yep.
Sir, on behalf of Institute of Cost Accountants of India, we would like to present some of our publications to the President of CMA Sri Lanka. I request Neeraj Joshi to kindly give our public. Yeah, and all request all the council members also to come.
So with that, we conclude our jointly organized International Cost Conference 2024 by the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka and the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, ICMAI. So we appreciate your participation, and the food will be served outside. So we invite you all